Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I am your host, Rody John, and today we talk to Nicole Savoy. We talk all about her amazing career, life after retirement, video games, and so much more. This is such a fun conversation I had with Nicole. She had an absolutely amazing career in the pro wrestling world, and now she is helping people outside of it, and obviously, loving video games and anime as well. So we get into all that here in a minute. But first, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get even more information about our guests. You get fun facts, and you get to find out what's happening with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Nicole Savoy. I would like to welcome to the show Nicole Savoy. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. Now, for those listening, kind of paint us a word picture. Where are you at? What's going on around you right now?
Hey, what's going on with me? Well, I currently reside in California near Sacramento.
Nice.
And I like video games. And I'm retired from wrestling.
Well, we're definitely going to get into both of those today. I guess, which one came first, pro wrestling or video games?
Video games. Definitely
okay.
video games.
What's the earliest one that you were like, all right, now I'm hooked?
Well, so I initially didn't start playing video games until I saw my dad play video games. My dad had this old TurboGrafx 16 console. And
wow.
Yeah, and we were living in Germany at the time because he was in the army. But his favorite game that he would play was Military Madness. So I used to just sit in front of the TV and watch him play. So it went from me just kind of watching him play to, years later, we ended up getting consoles that everyone could play, and I was, old enough to, understand you got to take care of an expensive piece of equipment, at the time. And so, my very first video game that introduced me to gaming was Halo. And it was back on the original Xbox, and I just absolutely fell in love with Halo, and then I kind of ended up branching off into other video games like Pokemon, Echo the Dolphin, Crash Bandicoot, all those old games.
No, I'm with you. I definitely, I grew up on the Atari, and then we had the regular Nintendo, and then we went to Sega, and then, on from there. But no, I remember those Sega games of, Echo the Dolphin, and then, you switched over to PlayStation and Xbox, and that just opened a whole new world. And I loved playing all the Halo games. I think I only really got up to 3. I don't think I played Halo, what's the one after that?
4. there was 4. And then it was Halo Guardians or something like that.
That's what I was thinking that, not Halo. Yeah, okay. Then maybe I got up to 4, and then I kind of stopped after that.
Well, if it had Spartan Locke in it, then I think it was Halo 4. Because I think Guardians, it was still Master Chief, but I don't know. I haven't, really played that one.
Yeah.
Because I loved when Bungie was making it, not so much when Studio 343 took over.
Yeah, it is funny how much a completely different company can take a video game that you would imagine not so much cut and paste, but they already have its fanfare. They already have if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just improve certain things, but then certain companies take over and just make the game obviously their entire thing, and it a lot of times can just take away from it.
Oh yeah, definitely. It kind of left me with the whole and then on top of that, it just kind of felt at that time, couch co-op was big. The companies were moving further and further away from couch co-op and doing completely online multiplayer. So that was another reason that kind of turned me off to Halo, because it's I missed having the couch co-op where you just sit next to someone. It was split screen and you could play. That's why I enjoyed Army of Two And the second Army of Two game, because like you could sit and play with. I used to play with my brother. My brothers. We sit down and split screen, and we played together. So kind of moved away from that.
Yeah, we had friends that would have basically LAN parties, and we would have probably 3 to 4 different Xbox hooked up, and then we'd all have a Halo night, and it was awesome. Like those nights were so fun. And now you don't really have to worry about it. You just do it all at home, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
where they kind of shifted everything online to where they wanted people to be there more than they would just hanging out with your friends in the same room.
Yep. So it was kind of sad. I mean, I still play like some online games, but I do miss, where you like, okay, my friend's coming over and we're going to play this video game together. Or
Yeah.
the whole like play until you die and then give up the controller. Like that was another thing that we did.
Yep. I played that plenty of times as well.
Oh, that started so many fights.
Yes. Yeah, because, once you die, you can kind of make up excuses as to why you died. And you're like, well, I wasn't ready, or that's not fair. And you're like, well, no, that's the rules. You die and you move on. Like the next person too. Yeah. Well, where did pro wrestling come from? What is your earliest memory of pro wrestling?
So, that is actually another thing that I really wasn't interested in when I was younger. I never really cared much for pro wrestling. It was my sister Tamika who got me into pro wrestling. And she actually was the one that was supposed to pursue pro wrestling. That's all she wanted to do. I just remembered when we were younger, she got really sick and she ended up in the hospital, and when she came home, she was watching like a lot of wrestling. So we were like, me and my brother, would come home from school, we were like, what are you watching? She was watching wrestling. So I saw women on TV, and I was like, oh, women do this too? That's pretty cool. So we ended up watching like with her, and it just kind of became like a weekly thing for us. And I kind of was like a rebel when I was younger. I felt like I was like the black sheep of the family, like always liked what other people didn't like and always did what, other people were either scared to do or wouldn't do because of the wrath of my dad. And I just remembered like we were all sitting down watching wrestling one night. And I don't know how the conversation went, but I just remember there was a question that my dad asked everyone, and he was just like, what does everybody want to be when they get older? I don't know how that conversation got started, but I just remembered that because there was a certain scene that was on that kind of was like, okay. So my brother, he said something, my sister said a banker. She's not a banker now, she like works in like medical and does stuff, but I said, well, I want to be a pro wrestler. And then at that very same time, it was when Trish Stratus came down to the ring and Vince McMahon was in the middle of the ring. Vince made her strip down in her skivvies and get on her hands and knees and bark like a dog. Well, you have your daughter over here who says she wants to be a pro wrestler, and you guys are watching this girl almost naked, barking like a dog in front of a guy, in front of thousands of people. My dad was like, absolutely not. No. Well, the more he told me no throughout the years, the more I kind of was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So after I got out of the military, I ended up just saying, you know what, whatever, packed all my stuff and moved to the East Coast and started my training there, and then came back here to the West Coast and continued my training and started wrestling from there. But really it was my sister that got it all started.
Wow. So when you started getting in the business, obviously she was your number one fan. How did she react whenever you did get in the business?
So it was very, how would I say, no one took it serious at first. And they didn't, and my dad still didn't approve of it. It was a constant battle with my dad. my dad didn't accept me wrestling until I did the Mayan Classic, and that's when he finally, it hit him that he was like, oh wow, like, okay, but, yeah, my sister was like, my number one fan, and she tried to be supportive, but like at the same time, it was kind of like a laughing joke. Like they watched my first match, and I just remembered like I was in tears because they were laughing and making fun of it. So, it was a constant struggle at first with my family.
Yeah.
Until
Well,
then, yeah. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was gonna say, yeah. Once you obviously made it to the Mae Young, and then you would think everything before that would also be something that they'd be proud of, like going to Japan, working all these places that most other wrestlers that love this business, once they get out of America and work all these different places, they feel like they're starting to make it and like they're starting to make that impact. And the fact that they were still laughing at it, it's like, well, obviously I'm getting paid to go do these places and I'm not flying myself out there. They're flying me out there.
Looking honestly, like, there's like one thing I can say that I can take away, like looking back at wrestling and stuff now, is it's just kind of like, it's kind of outside looking in. If it was me, and someone close to me was pursuing wrestling, like, it's kind of almost, it's like a 1 in a millionth chance that person is gonna, make something out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
It's just like someone pursuing acting, right? Everyone's just kind of like, oh, they're doing these small gigs. I'm happy that you're getting to do what you love. But then, like, a person gets their big break and, they end up in a big movie or whatever, and it's just kind of like, oh shit, like, you actually made it, So it's kind of like reality and acceptance doesn't really set in. And for a lot of people, like, you're the people who, you surround yourself with until like, they, like, it happens, you know what I mean? And I kind of understood that because it's also kind of like, we have like athletes in our family, like I had an uncle who played in the NFL, and then I had a cousin who played in the minor leagues. So like, it's like I said, it's like that 1 in a millionth chance where it's like, somebody actually goes and does something outside of what's normal. Like, most kids say, I want to be a police officer and a firefighter. And then you have a kid over here saying, I'm going to put all my eggs into this basket and be a pro wrestler.
Right.
Like, you don't know if they're going to make it or not. Firefighter and police officer is a secure job. Like, my dad was, still to this day is very, worried about, I understand, like, that's what you want to do, but, like, what about your future? Like, after you're done, like, what's in store for you next? How are you going to take care of yourself? So it's like, you don't, and then, there was always, like, that bad cloud with pro wrestling and pro wrestlers where it's like, I always heard, like, the bad stories of, like, the drug addictions and, like, the alcoholism and all the other stuff. So it's like, in the back of your mind, in the back of a person's mind, they're like, well, doesn't really end good for most wrestlers, so they already have kind of like that stigma of seeing someone pursue pro wrestling. So I think that also kind of was like a factor. So.
No, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I have a brother who's he's an actor up in Canada, and he always loves showing us, the commercials he does or like the short films. But yeah, like you said, my mom keeps telling him, don't think you're too big unless you have, I think she said, Steven Spielberg's number in your phone. And I was like, I mean, that's definitely one way of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's true though. Like, I remember, like, one of the